The Capitals looking to jumpstart their offense might see the addition of Ivan Miroshnichenko into the lineup. What would that mean for the Capitals? I'll discuss next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On, before that on various outlets. And I'm also the host of the weekly Capitals show called the Capitals Minute Cast, available wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is being a big fan of Monopoly Go, the twist on a classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or on Google Play. So on this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about how we know the Capitals offense has been pretty stale, suffices to say. So they're looking to mix things up. Is what is at practice? Is that any indication of what will be on the ice on Friday? And could Ivan Miroshnichenko get his first look in the playoffs? We'll talk about that a little bit later. We will talk about how Alex Ovechkin has struggled in the playoffs, and at first kind of was dismissive of it, said, I only want one question in this interview, and was feeling pretty bad about himself. Well, today he kind of owned up to it and acknowledged that he needs to play better. What did he have to say? We'll talk about that. And then a little bit later, we will talk about how Chucky is in it to win it. But just to get it going here, talking about the game Friday evening, tomorrow, tonight, depending on when you're listening or watching this podcast, the Capitals are down 0-2 in the series. The absolute worst case scenario for me as a Capitals fan is to see them fall 0-3. That is a hill they might not be able to summit. That would be quite difficult. So the Capitals are looking to jumpstart their offense. And if practice on Thursday was any indicator, we might see our first look at Ivan Miroshnichenko in the playoffs. Is he going to be the magic pill for the Capitals to help catapult them over the top? Whoa, let's tamper expectations there a little bit. But ultimately, I think the Capitals are doing what they can do to try to jumpstart this offense. Aube-Kubel skated with the scratches after practice, so that would indicate that Ivan Miroshnichenko will be on the fourth line in place of Nicolas Aube-Kubel on the right wing. And I agree with that. Ultimately, Nicolas Aube-Kubel hasn't ultimately popped off the page, has been a liability at certain points, kind of mixed it up a little bit too much after the play, which I know I like physicality, but in any event, I do think it is a good idea to see what Ivan Miroshnichenko has in the tank. A dynamic forward, to be sure. I think he has an upward trajectory, and I think it's worth a look. I mean, at this point, the Capitals are down 0-2 in the series, and ultimately, they have to do what they can with the lineup that they have. Carberry didn't change the lineup at all in Game 2, and now they've dug themselves a hole and are down 0-2 in the series. The urgency of winning a singular game at this point has reached a fever pitch. I'm looking for speed and competitiveness, hard on the puck, physicality, which he owns, especially when he was called up, Carberry said, of Ivan. His speed was on display, and he was tenacious all over the ice on the puck. I think it's worth a look. I think that Ivan Miroshnichenko figures to be in the long-term plans for the Capitals. And like I say, they're down 0-2, and they were sellers at the deadline, and they don't have this magic person that they can call up to fill the bill. We could, argue about different players down in Hershey that could ostensibly be that boost, but we don't know that for sure. Ethan Frank has played well in Hershey. Pierre Dubé didn't, exactly set the world on fire when he was up here. So getting a look at Ivan under the big lights in the playoffs, I think, is a worthwhile thing. Will Ivan be enough for the Caps to win? It sure can't hurt, and that's my assessment on it. It's worth a look. Obviously, what has been out on the ice thus far has not worked. Carberry has limited tools in his toolbox and must try and use them effectively. Like I talked about earlier there, they were sellers at the deadline. The perception was that they were out of it. So Mantha moved out, a guy that scored a lot of goals this year. Joel Edmondson, that rugged defenseman that would fit in pretty well with Sandin and Jensen out right now, he's gone. And Evgeny Kuznetsov, well, he was a mixed bag, but the Capitals' perception is that they were out. So enter Ivan Miroshnichenko. I really, really do think it's the right idea. And just taking a look at it, the struggles that this team has faced thus far, it's worthwhile. Other changes at practice today. Scarboza was the only other change at practice as he filled in for Sonny Milano, who was taking a maintenance day. Sonny Milano at points has been absolutely clutch for this team. His hand-eye coordination is off the charts. Hasn't really shown that in the playoffs thus far, but in any event, what we know at practice, the official word was that it was a maintenance day. A lot has changed for this year's Capitals team as we take a look at it. This is a team the last couple of years that saw very little change and had a lot of the same veterans it's had for years. You know what I'm talking about. Backstrom, Ovechkin, Wilson, Carlson, Oshie, the same crew for so many years. It was predictable. We knew how they would perform under the big lights on the big stage. And we saw how well they played. We saw the highs, we saw the lows, we saw this team kind of age out. So this team got younger this year, not by design. As we, take a look back on this season, at some point it was based on necessity. Players entering the NHL's player assistance program, players getting injured, players stepping away from hockey is what has ushered in this next wave of Capitals players. That is what is a lot different about it. And as far as the blue line is concerned, I wish I had better news for you. I really, really don't, as Sandin and Jensen are still in non-contact jerseys. The one thing that's, good about this whole thing is we have got a good look at Dylan McIlrath, the captain of your Hershey Bears, and I'm impressed. I think that he has found a spot on this team. Now, the question is who's going to, leave the lineup for him to be in. That is something that can be taken care of in the offseason, but I like Dylan's game, his size, and just the fact that, he got an assist on an Ovechkin goal. How crazy was that when he was called up towards the end of the season? I do think that he is, it's worthwhile an extended look in the fall, but, taking a look at the blue line, Dylan has stepped up. Vinny Iorio has stepped up before he got injured. We saw Lucas Johansson, that this ragtag group of young and old players did the unthinkable and made it to the playoffs. But there is still much to be done here. But as far as Sandin and Jensen are concerned, I would be surprised if either are in Friday's game, especially the fact that they were in non-contact jerseys. I just don't see it. They're just working their way back. Carberry said after practice, I really can't give you an update other than that. Still in non-contact, skated today, so we'll see how they are tomorrow. I mean, stranger things have happened, but ultimately, as we look at it right now, it does not seem too promising. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we have been tough on Alex Ovechkin. I have been tough on Alex Ovechkin, but he is owning up to his underperforming. And what does he do to change it in game number 3? I'll discuss straight ahead. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than other candidates who see it in the search, according to USN data. So if you are in the hiring business in HR, you do definitely need Indeed. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows when you're growing your business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why you need Indeed. You only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/locked-on to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on. One more time, Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application not available for everyone. You need to hire? You need Indeed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Alex Ovechkin is an interesting man, a man that likes to vacillate back and forth from successful to non-existent to successful. Let's take a look at his season thus far. He got off to his slowest start in his career as far as the goal scoring department is concerned. Did not play in the All-Star game, went to Dubai with his family, said he's refreshed and reset, and a lot of people were skeptical, but he set the world ablaze, did the unthinkable, and made a pretty good dent into his goal total that a lot of people didn't think he was going to be able to do. And then game 1 of the playoffs, and it's like someone hit the reset switch in his head yet again, and he has been struggling. Now, up until this moment, he has been a bit dismissive of his lack of effort, his lack of productivity, but he has owned it today at practice. In an interview here, they were talking when he was talking with the media about how he has played and ultimately how the Capitals look to improve as the series goes back to Capital One. The Capitals will be playing in the friendly confines of Capital One Arena, and there's reason to believe things might go the Capitals' way. The Capitals are 22, 12, and 7 compared to their 18, 19, and 4 road record. Is that going to be enough to solve the Rubik's Cube that is the New York Rangers? Maybe. I'm hopeful, crossing my fingers and toes. You can't see my toes. You don't want to. I think it is worthwhile. This can only help Ovi, who hasn't factored in so far in the playoffs. It sure couldn't hurt. We know it's always more difficult playing on the road, and Madison Square Garden is loud during the regular season, exponentially louder in the postseason. So playing at the friendly confines of Capital One in the district, that feels good. Ovi has struggled in the playoff series so far. He's only mustered 1 shot on goal through 2 games. What is up with that? That's a question that still hasn't been answered. Spencer Carberry was worried as well. He acknowledged that something is off with the grade 8, saying the team's captain looks a little bit off. That was some pretty candid talk about the team captain, a guy of Alex Ovechkin's caliber, something that generally head coaches don't do anytime, but primarily in the postseason. Carberry went on to say, we just have to calm down. Yeah, we're a young team, but we still have some experienced team, you know. We have to calm down, play simple with the puck, don't think about it too much, and it will come. That is the hope, that it will come. And hopefully that will be enough. And if we take a look at it, Spencer Carberry hasn't tinkered with things too much. He's kind of said, this is the lineup. This is what worked in the season. Let's go. As far as the top line, it looks to go unchanged if, practice Thursday is any indicator, as it was Ovi, McMichael, and Oshie. But the thing of it is it's not just Alex Ovechkin. It's not just the great eight. Oshie has struggled as well. They both have just 2 shots combined at 5-on-5. I think that the spotlight shines a bit brighter at Alex Ovechkin because of who he is, what he has done historically, that he is the guy that has the extra gear in the postseason. We haven't seen that extra gear. We've seen his gear in park and or neutral. We're hoping that he can kick it into turbo and or overdrive. But that's the struggle. Ovi was a little bit more candid and open in today's meeting with the press. He said, I think it's just settle down a little bit. Ovechkin said, you have to be more patient with the puck because I know we play against a good hockey team. They're going to sacrifice their body. They're going to play hard against our top lines, blocking shots, playing physical, and we just have to play simple. And if we have the puck on our stick, don't throw it away. DeAndre, that goal by DeAndre, does that strike a bell there? I think he's becoming a little bit self-reflective. Try to find the lane. We've been in this situation before, so we know how to handle it. Let's ultimately hope that that is not just lip service. I think that, he's watched it back. He's probably read some of the beat writers' assessment. I know that, Alex Ovechkin is this huge name, and what does he care what people think? Listen, he cares, he cares a lot, and I'm not here to disparage him. I'm just kind of assessing things the way they are. He has 1 shot on goal in 2 games. Can't sugarcoat it. Facts are facts. And that's the way it is. But one of the things here as well is, it's not just him like I talked about. It's Oshie as well. So things need to change. With over 12 minutes on the PP, he has 4 shot attempts, but they've all been blocked or shot wide. So, part of it's Ovechkin. Part of it is the Rangers doing their pre-scouting, knowing who he is. Peter Laviolette being the head coach of the Capitals last season, that they are prepared. They're blocking shots. They're laying out. And that frustrated look, I think that we see on Alex Ovechkin's face is frustration because the shots that he normally finds the back of the net are being blocked. And he's feeling like, he's not catching a break. So it has to be frustrating for Alex Ovechkin, who has been clutch for the Capitals for years. But Carberry is clear here not to just throw Alex Ovechkin under the bus alone. He mentions that the team, yes, the whole team, needs to rally around Ovechkin and play better. I think we've got to do a better job of helping him, number one, as a coaching staff, line mates, teammates, or finding ways to get him the puck in certain situations. Now, some of the criticism has been that he's kind of just posted up at his office and kind of waited for it to come to him. There has been negative assessments around NHL circles saying that it almost looks like his feet are caught in quicksand, that when Alex Ovechkin was successful the last half of this season, he did it by keeping his skates and his feet moving, and that is what made him successful. He's got to find it again. The New York Rangers are really good, but Capitals fans, I got something crazy to tell you here. Say something crazy happens and they do win this series. And I only say crazy because they're down 0-2. Not impossible, improbable. Say they do make it out of this round of the playoffs. It's not going to get any easier. The team that they play next is going to be that much more difficult. And it's not something that's unique to the Capitals. A lot of teams in the playoffs are struggling. So, it's easy to say, woe is me, the Capitals, man, it's really tough on them. There are a lot of teams that were destined to be Stanley Cup winners that are going to be eliminated in the first round. It's unfortunate, but there can only be one Stanley Cup winner. Can it be the Capitals? Can they find a way to rally the troops? Can Alex Ovechkin find his former glory? Can he take a sip out of the fountain of youth and be clutch when the Capitals need him the most? That's what we're hoping for anyway. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we will talk about how Chucky Sideburns, the outlaw, he's in it to win it. And don't tell him the Capitals are out of it. He is going to do whatever it takes to help lift this team over the top. Let's talk about Mr. Sideburns coming up. I've been told I'm a competitive person. You think that's true? Okay, well, yeah, I have a competitive side. We all do, and my competitive side is being a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you can play, or not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them rent on iconic properties just like classic Monopoly, but now it can also heist their vaults of riches for myself. I do like to be a troublemaker, and the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with your friends, people all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in on the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or on Google Play. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So if we take a look at Chucky Sideburns, just to reflect on this last season, he did the improbable. And I say that a lot because that's what the Capitals did, making it to the playoffs, defying odds. Charlie Lindgren is also a part of that. Started the season as a backup, Darcy Kemper with the pedigree, the Stanley Cup feather in his hat, struggled, put up the worst numbers of his career. And Chucky Sideburns rode in on his horse and saved this team. Now, immediately there were people that drew comparisons to last season, that he was super clutch in December, but kind of fizzled after that. Well, that was last year, and that was last year's Capitals. Charlie Lindgren has been huge for the Capitals all of the regular season. You can take a look at his numbers in the postseason, and they're not quite as good, but there's a little bit of noise in that data as the Capitals as a whole have not been as good. So it's easy to say, Charlie Lindgren, you're not doing your job. Alex Ovechkin, you're not doing your job, because that's in a vacuum. You take a look at Charlie Lindgren, the netminder, struggling, Ovechkin, but you could paint this team with a broad brush here. This team as a whole is struggling. So Charlie Lindgren, though, you take a look at him, his struggles, he has learned to have a tough mental mindset, that he can do it and has done it and has been clutch playing against some of the best teams in the NHL. So don't tell him the season's over. Don't tell him to wave the white flag. He will set your white flag on fire. The Caps haven't given up on the playoffs, and neither has Charlie Lindgren. The Caps definitely are facing an uphill battle, and they can do that with Charlie Lindgren, but they can summit this big hill with the help of Charlie Lindgren. Chucky has done it all season, and I think he can do it again, but not just him, a team playing well around him. I think he can do it. And Charlie himself, he has faith. Charlie is generally a wall in net, so his uncharacteristic numbers through the first two games, well, they don't tell the whole story. What is some of the things that Spencer Carberry said all season, that when he first joined the team, he looked at the Capitals netminders of last year and said that, the team hung them out to dry. And we saw parts of that during the regular season, but especially has been magnified in the playoffs, where the Capitals have hung Charlie Lindgren out to dry. And that's why his numbers are not lighting up the back of his hockey card. Lindgren has given up 8 goals and a save percentage of .864. To be quite honest with you, I've felt pretty good out there. I've had no nerves at all the whole series. I think I've been seeing the puck really well, Lindgren said. I think game 1, there was a couple odd bounces, and even the last game, a couple bad bounces. Honestly, I feel good. And I feel good about Charlie Lindgren being in net, much better than Darcy Kemper. And, to be honest with you, you could pick most any netminder out there right now. And with the way the Capitals are playing around the netminder, you're not going to get wins. Lindgren knows, though, in his heart of hearts, he needs to be better. The Caps' playoff life depends on how he plays in net. Obviously, I've got to cut down. I can't be letting in 4 goals. I know that, so I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that I can put the team in a good spot. And I think he's done that. And as far as Spencer Carberry is concerned, he's not phased. He knows that Charlie Lindgren is the guy. He says, don't worry about Chucky. I don't worry about what he's doing in net. All the things I know is that we as a team need to help him out. Touche, Mr. Carberry. We have to do better things in front of him, whether it's the penalty kill, whether it's keeping it 5-on-5, whether it's coverage stuff, whether it's a breakaway, all these different things, we've got to help him out. So again, it's easy to isolate this player or that player and saying that they're not living up to potential, but this team as a whole needs to play better. Again, I reference the 2018 season quite often, and I do remember it because I listened to Capitals podcast back then when it was JJ Regan and Tarek El-Bashir. I loved the dynamic between those two guys. And they talked about the team and their struggles. And, a lot of people thought that this team was down and out in Columbus and Tampa and in Vegas. There's no way they're going to take down Vegas. And this team that struggled for so many years, Alex Ovechkin, struggling for so many years to do the unthinkable, to get this team, the Capitals, their first Stanley Cup win in team history, did just that. So before you want to pull out your white flag, before you're, ready to burn your Capitals jersey, just remember the Capitals have done a lot. Now, I'm not going to etch their name in the side of the Stanley Cup right now, but what I am saying is don't give up on them. Just take a look at Alex Ovechkin, how he proved us all wrong. And take a look at how the Capitals did the unthinkable by making it to the playoffs, period, that this team is able of doing more. So Friday, my recipe for success is this, and I talk about it. If you're an everydayer of the show, I talk about it. Chucky needs to play better. Alex Ovechkin needs to be better, but this team absolutely must bring their physical game if they have any hopes of winning, because they're outmatched by the Rangers. Pound for pound, the Rangers have more offensive weaponry. If you don't believe it, compare the two side by side. There's plenty of websites that can compare the two for you, that, the Rangers are just better in a lot of different regards. So the Capitals, kind of like the young, small, scrawny guy, kind of a David and Goliath situation. If you're a religious person, that it is a David and Goliath situation. And the Capitals have to do the unthinkable and take down a giant that is the Rangers. It isn't impossible. Street fights, the smaller guy sometimes wins, but you've got to use any tool in your tool set to help you win the fight. The Capitals have to use every tool in their tool set to win the fight. Now, listen, a lot of those tools, they fell out of the toolbox during the season. They bounced around in the truck, and we lost a bunch of them at the trade deadline. So we really need to use the tools that we do have in the tool set correctly. There's a lot of flat-headed screwdrivers, not enough Phillips, that you're going to have to fashion some tools together to find a way for this team to win. The playoffs of the Capitals depends on it. And that's what it's all about. The Capitals can do it. For me, I hate to use cliches. You want to go 1-0 every day, but it's true. If the Capitals can take down the Rangers the next game, Friday evening, I think anything is possible, because hockey, like every other sport, is a sport about momentum. And if you can continue to keep riding positive momentum, well, stranger things have happened. The Capitals have proven that all season, that stranger things have, in fact, happened. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show successful. And yes, Locked On Capitals continues to go on year-round. 5 days a week for the most part. There's like a month in the middle of the dog days of summer that were 3 days a week, but I still might go 5 days a week. That this podcast is not packing up its tent like a lot of other podcasts, that your Capitals coverage is right here because we are locked on Capitals. All right, when you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7, available on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.